Hello everyone and welcome back to Another Mother. This is a faith and parenting podcast by My Spring Harvest with me, Emma Francis. Now I am so excited for you to hear this conversation that I've just had with Tim and Rachel Hughes. They have been married for 21 years. They are the senior leaders of Gas Street Church in Birmingham and they are parents to 5 children. Tim also is a worship leader and a songwriter, and Rachel leads a women's ministry called The Orchard. And they are busy people, but they are generous with their lives. And I am so grateful that they made the time whilst on their half-term holiday to have this conversation where we talk all about what it means to live a life that looks outward, what it means to live a life responding to what God has called us to do, and how we do that with a family in tow, how we take on all the emotions and how we deal with all of the ins and outs, the ups and downs of family life. I'm so grateful for them. This conversation is honest, it is real, and I know you're going to absolutely love it. So I can't wait for you to hear it. On this podcast, I like to ask a lot of the questions that I personally have, and I just hope that the audience care about those questions.
Yeah. No,
but I'm very nosy and I have a lot of deep questions. But I've obviously admired you both from afar. I don't know you very well at all, but I've kind of seen you from afar for a lot of years. And I always think, like, when I see someone from afar and I'm not that close in their kind of world, but you notice something kind of different about them. You think, like, what is it that's different about the way they do ministry or the way they do family or the way they do business? And I was thinking about you guys and I was like, what is it that they do differently? And then I realized that one thing that stands out to me, so you might be like, that's not true, but from afar, one thing that stands out to me is that I feel like you guys are very outward focused. And that's quite rare because I think, especially in family life, as your family grows bigger, you tend to just look more inward because you have to. There's more responsibility, there's more need, you need more time even to get for yourself, to get your head around all the things that you're doing. But I feel like with you guys, you've done the opposite and you've almost expanded outward. So I wanted to know, I guess, how you've managed to keep that outward focus, if it was an intentional decision.
It's good.
Yeah, I'm going to go away and reflect on that because I don't think anyone's ever said that in that way. It's definitely, and I would say that's definitely not been a conscious choice, but I definitely think it's been a Holy Spirit leading. And I think probably that underpins everything that we do in ministry, in family, is we really want to be led by what the Spirit's doing. And I think the Spirit does always lead you outwards. He does always lead you to love and to serve others. But I would also say within that, it's interesting, isn't it, that what you sometimes see of people out there is only sort of a slither of the whole picture.
Yeah.
And yes, on the one hand, I think we really have, I think, to be honest, leading a local church makes a huge difference because your focus is always, when you're in the sort of the throes, the trenches of leading a local church, naturally you have to think outward because you've got these people right in front of you that need to be loved and pastored and led and envisioned. But the other side is, I think we've also tried to be really intentional about ensuring that there are boundaries, there is balance. I mean, the illusion of balance, where it is just us, it's just our family.
I'd say just on the word balance.
Yeah.
I actually hate that word.
Do you?
I think it kills so much.
True.
And I don't see a model of balance in the Bible. What I see is rhythms. I think the creation story is, rhythms of work and rest. And Jesus, there are rhythms of ministry and time away with his Father. So I think we work really hard to put in good rhythms. So basically life and ministry is sustainable, that, we do have, we take our days off seriously, our holidays seriously. We ensure that there's moments of space, but life is full. It's, but I think is it Paul who talks about being poured out like a drink offering. And I think that's slightly how I view, I want to pour myself out for people, for God. I think yes, absolutely. The Spirit does always call us out. I think also our personality types are very much can do. So you go into a situation and you're like bubbling away with ideas. And so for us, the idea of sort of maintaining. Now, there are people who that's their great call to sort of maintain, and that's not our great passion or gift. So we'll always be wanting to step into new adventures with the church, let's plant here, let's try this with our family. We don't want our kids to, I think we feel the best way we can raise them is to be thinking can do. What could God do in my life? What adventures could we go on? We talk about adventure a lot. We love that. Even, again, I think we'll come on to this, the joy of adoption. I think we just look at everything with why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. And then you kind of, and what we found anyway, is as we've stepped out and we've been blessed with amazing family and support, and I think we can shoulder a lot. We sort of found God's come through. He's strengthened us. He's given us what we've needed. He's provided. So
I think one of the sort of things that's helped me is learning the difference between sort of calculating the cost and counting the cost. And when we choose to follow Jesus, we choose to count the cost, and it is costly. It is sacrificial. That is abundantly clear through Jesus's teaching. And I think sometimes the danger is we calculate the cost rather than counting it. And to calculate the cost is to look at a particular decision or a situation through a human lens, to say, well, if I choose to do that or to put myself out there in this way, it's going to affect my time, my money, my living situation, my ambitions, whatever it might be. And so we calculate it and then think, it's too much. I'm not going to do that. But I think counting the cost is different. Counting the cost is, this is going to take me into a realm beyond my ability, beyond my comfort zone, beyond my human capacity. But I'm pretty sure this is God. And so I'm going to trust that he's going to give me what I need. And therefore it's going to cost me. I can't eliminate that. But I'm going to count the cost and trust that he'll make up the difference. And I think that's probably a mentality that we both have.
That's really, wow, that is very powerful. But I think as well, the stage of family life that you're at, so just say again, sorry, how old your kids are. I know you just told me before, but for the sake of the recording, how old are your children now?
I'm going to test him.
No, we've got 5. So eldest daughter 18, then a son who's 16, another daughter who's 15, a son who's 12, and then our youngest is a little daughter, and she's just turned 5 a few days ago.
All our birthdays are in the autumn and winter, so that was actually quite impressive because everyone is changing.
Oh gosh, okay, wow. So there's a lot going on, and they're really significant ages, and they are also ages where they're probably going to have an opinion. So when you're talking about we're counting the cost, and when you're talking about we want to be on adventure, like we've got the shoulders to carry it, like we can do this, we want to say yes to God. Do you feel now that your children, some of your children slightly older, that you have to involve them in that decision? Like, do you say to them, we feel this is what God is saying, we want to step up, because it affects them too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And interestingly, we've had some, particularly some of the older guys, interesting chats. We were away, we had, summer holidays, we always go away, usually for like 3 weeks, which again is a real sort of down tools, regroup, hang out with the family. And some of the conversations that came up were actually about some of these costs, particularly around moving to Birmingham, starting a church. Our guys we were in London. And I think, sometimes the grass is always green. I think sometimes some maybe look and think, if we'd been in London, life would be better, but the cost of leading a church, and it does impact them and affect them. And I think for some of them I think love being part of the church where we're the pastor. And for some of the other kids, I think they find that really hard. That sort of sense of that goldfish bowl, and And even some of the decisions in terms of expanding the family, you know, when our time is now divided between 5 rather than 4, some of them expressed, you know, the cost of that. And I think that and this is where I think the different philosophies of parenting, if we're just trying to like protect our kids and make life as comfortable as possible for them, which I think sometimes I see almost that's what parents are encouraged to do. I think it's a disastrous way to parent, because we want if we want to nurture our kids to be like God, then that is around sacrifice and, but again, pouring yourselves out. And so I think what we've tried to do is just to listen and sit with them in that kind of, this has been challenging at times. I guess our hope and prayer is as they get older and they look back and they think, do you know, actually, that really installed good things in me. You know, I'm really glad that we were a part of that. And of course, it is costly, but I'd say the best things in life are costly. Bearing a child, pushing out a child.
Yeah. How did you find that?
Yeah. Well, it's quite draining. It took quite a while to.
Sorry that I took too long.
Was that a bit of an inconvenience for you?
Yeah,
Well, yeah, hanging around a little bit.
Actually, I'll never forget when I was giving birth to our eldest Phoebe. There was one point, you know, where maybe my tolerance levels weren't as high as they could have been. And I looked over and he'd made himself a nice cozy little bed and was watching TV on, you know, some kind of device. And I was busy, you know, labouring away. I didn't have a huge amount of grace for you, I think, at that point.
You are very up, yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is I think we've also tried with our children to own our mistakes and to say sorry and to hold things in a way that aren't like, well, we've made this decision, end of.
Yeah.
And I think there are times in parenting where you have to say, look, we really feel this is the right way to go. And so we're going to go in this way. And to be fair, some of those bigger decisions were made when the kids were a lot younger. And so perhaps they had less of a view on it. But I think what we've tried to do is keep the conversation open. And so when our children, as they've got older, have expressed, do you know, I found it really hard when this happened, or that was really tough, I didn't like it, you know, and they don't always express it at that age in a way that's particularly measured. But what we've tried to do, and I have to say Tim is amazing at this, is just say, tell me, I'm listening, you know, rather than be defensive or, well, we knew best, you know, okay, yeah, tell us, look, I'm really sorry. Even if you know it was the right decision, to be able to say, I'm sorry, I can see how that really affected you and I'm really sorry. And I hope that will actually be key, that as they get older, and I've no doubt in my mind that in their 20s, except beyond, they will reflect back on their childhood and there'll be things that they think, that was difficult. I don't know why mum and dad did that. They could have done that better, no question. But I hope that we've instilled within them that they can always come to us and tell us. And we're not going to defend. We're not going to sort of have, you know, we're not going to respond in a sort of an emotionally immature way, but we'll just listen and understand and say, yeah, I see it. I see it from your perspective.
Also, sorry, my parents, they led a church in Birmingham. Yeah. And when I was 14, we moved actually from just outside London to Birmingham, a similar move. And it was really painful, really costly, sort of hated it initially.
You were furious about it, weren't you?
But I look back and it was the best thing that happened to me. So I think sometimes when you've experienced that as a kid, you have that bigger picture of like, actually this was a really important formational moment for me.
Yeah, so Rachel, you were saying that your kids can kind of come to you and they can feel like they can express anything. But as a parent, that requires a lot of emotional regulation. It requires for you to be able to receive that. If you're busy, number one, doing a million things, you've got, I don't know, you're preaching that day and you've got a church conference coming up and you're doing this, that and the other, and you've made these decisions that have actually been a big sacrifice for you. You're putting so much energy into it. And then your kid's just like, well, I don't want to do that. Or like kind of how in that moment do you find calm on a really practical level? Maybe this is too much of a big question, but like on a really practical level, when you're feeling stressed and then your kid brings something to you that you know you need to listen to, how do you do that in that moment?
I think that is really, really key. And I think as a parent, our ability to regulate our own emotional responses is probably one of the foundations. And I won't sit here and tell you that I've got it right every time, but I'm super aware of that very thing, my own emotional well-being. And I think the danger of parenting, and it actually applies to church leadership, is we can leak our own emotional disorder onto our children, onto our church. And so I guess the obvious but absolutely critical answer to that is we have to be investing. I have to be investing in that place with my Heavenly Father where I can just pour out my frustration, my stress, etc. So I think that's key. We also have a therapist who we see and have done for many, many years now. And we will see her maybe every 6 to 8 weeks. And that space has been absolutely crucial. I think a lot of what you're talking about is expressed through the fruit of patience. And so if patience or forbearance is another way that it's written in the scripture, if that is a fruit of the Spirit, that is something that I pray for all the time. Wow. And I have to trust that if in Galatians it tells me that patience is a fruit of the Spirit, that's going to be something that the Spirit is able to fill me with. And I think in order to stay emotionally regulated in that moment, it means being patient with the child that's in front of you. And that will look like not just, because I think my tendency, it's sort of on a bad day, is to say exactly how you frame the question. Well, I've done this, I've done that. You have no idea how my day is. Da, 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 da. And that doesn't help them. It shuts them down. And that's the very last thing that you want to do as a parent is to create a scenario where your child feels that their feelings, their emotions, their opinions aren't valid. And so it requires the patience, I believe, that only comes from the Holy Spirit to sit in that moment where you're shattered, you're stretched, you're stressed, and just say, yeah, tell me how that feels from your perspective. Even though in your mind you're like, this is small fry. Yeah. Actually, it matters. It matters. And the truth is, as I said, I have got this wrong. And there have been times where I've just said, I don't have time, or not necessarily use that phrase, because I would try really hard not to use that phrase. I don't have time for you. I wouldn't use that phrase, but I might express that sentiment in a different way. And again, I think this is where repair is so important. And I can say that that almost every single time that has happened, either that an hour later or at worst that evening, or maybe even the next day, I would go to that child and say, hey, look, I'm so sorry. I was really tired. I'd had a really tough day, and I took that out on you. And I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Actually, you weren't in the wrong. It was me. And when you do that, you let them off the hook. Suddenly it's like, oh, because what children do is they absorb and they assume it's their fault. And I think any time we can let them off the hook from the responsibility of our own emotion, it's only going to build that sense of connection. I don't do it perfectly, but I'm really aware of not allowing my toxic emotion to spill out on them. And the only way I do that is by time with my Heavenly Father, time processing with Tim, and time processing with a therapist, honestly.
Yeah. Well, that's so great. That's really helpful just on a very practical level, because I think it's easy to hear these things and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll try and just, I don't know, make time for my kids and let them say whatever. And then you get in that moment, you're like, I can't do this. So it's good to have that kind of practical view as well.
Can I be really annoying and say one other thing that's really helped me? I know this is a long-winded answer.
No, it's great.
Another thing that's helped me, and again, this is about self-awareness, because I think, again, self-awareness is absolutely crucial. There are certain emotions that our children will express that are more triggering for us. So for some people, when a child expresses anger, it's a trigger for us. And the reason it will be a trigger is it will be connected to how our own parents dealt with our own expressions of particular emotion. And I'm not throwing my parents under the bus here. They were amazing. And same for Tim's, but none of us are perfect. And so we have to be aware. For some parents, when our children express fear, it's a trigger, because maybe in our own parenting, our fear was dismissed. Oh, come on, get over it. It's not scary. Or it might, it might be excitement, that actually excitement is triggering, because again, in your own parenting experience, if you were excited, you were told, calm down, put a lid on it. So self-awareness, what emotions in your children trigger for you? Yes. What emotions in them do you instinctively want to squash and crush and go away, particularly when they're expressed publicly? That's when you really know. Because the ideal, none of us are perfect parents, is that we can sit in our children's emotions with them. And so pay attention to what triggers you, and it will help.
Yeah, because there are brilliant exercises that you can do around like understanding that for yourself, isn't it? Did you do the circle of security parenting course? Yes. I love it. Because I did that exercise in there, and mine was like, oh yeah, anger, that's my one.
Shark
I'm
music.
Like, I don't know what to, the shark music. I'm like, I don't know what to do with anger, because I'm like, I don't know if I was really able to fully be angry, or I don't know, it was like, just don't be angry, like that's not a good emotion. So then when my kids are angry, I'm like, don't be angry. So I even tried, like, I started giving Ezra like paper so that he could rip it up. And he was like, why are you giving me paper to rip? I was like, I think that's a good way for you to process your anger. But I was just really trying to kind of, I guess, accept it.
We were about 3 years into leaving the church, and I suddenly had a bit of a crash and was dizzy, and basically realised I was high stress. And that's when I guess began meeting this therapist. And the key thing for me was learning that I wasn't good at expressing anger. And what I did, I would absorb everyone's junk and live in it. But obviously it got to a point where I just couldn't anymore. So one of the lessons for me, and one of the things I've had to do, which again slightly helps how do you then, doing everything with family and church and everything else, was find outlets for my anger and learn how to express anger in a healthy way. Because my understanding is a warped understanding that all expressions of anger were bad.
Yeah.
But actually, no, there's a good way of expressing anger and a bad way. So actually what I did for a while is I took up boxing, literally just to smash.
I love that.
Smash the anger out of me. And I remember talking to one church leader, and the wife was telling me, do you know what, we had this old washing machine, and I took it out into the back garden and I just told him to smash the washing machine to pieces. And I'm like, okay. But I think also for parenting, there are moments where you hit a point where you just need to go somewhere safe and scream and shout and do something just to like
physically get it out of you.
Yeah.
That was it, physically get it out of you. So that's why, again, exercise or outlets, or, and again, not everyone's going to be anger. That's so important to get it out. And I can see when I haven't, then I'm much more, and you're much, much more patient with the kids generally, but I can be a bit more, I can catastrophize or snap more. And so actually I need to, if I'm getting better spaces to get an outlet, I'm going to be better at home.
Now, as a special gift for our Another Mother listeners, we have got an exclusive discount for you. So we'll pop the details of that in the description below this episode. But head over to springharvest.org, secure your place today, and don't miss out on this opportunity to join thousands of families as we come together in worship. I can't wait to see you here next year. So, you've mentioned it a little bit already, but you made the decision to adopt your youngest child when you had kind of already been doing church stuff, so you're already well on the way with church ministry. That's probably very busy. You had 4 children already, and then the kind of decision came about for you guys that you wanted to do this. So can you just talk me through a bit about how you knew that that was the right thing for you as a family? How did you come to that decision when life is already so full? How did you do that?
I think probably the first thing to say is it wasn't a decision that we took lightly or quickly. And again, it's funny when you only see a slither of a person's life sort of out there. What it doesn't always tell is the story of, what was going on in the background. I think it was a decision that we made over a number of years. And it probably started for me as a child. I had a very, very strong desire to care for vulnerable children. And that didn't kind of play out in my job, anything like that, but it never really went away. And when Tim and I first got together, we talked about whether adoption or fostering might be part of, what our family would look like. And at that point, we had no idea whether birth children would come easily. That's not a guarantee, obviously. And Tim was really open. And, I'd said this was something that had been on my heart since I was a kid. And then we did start a family biologically, and we had a couple of children. And we always thought maybe we'll have 2 biological children and then we'll explore adoption. And I did actually contact our local authority at the time in London. And our youngest was 1 at the time. And they said, he really needs to be 2 before we begin the process. And then actually, we really knew that there were more biological children, God willing. And so we planned for and had 2 more biological children. So at this point, we've got 4 kids under the age of 5, I will point out. We had them in very quick succession. I mean, again, that is so, and these things are always, as we know, God willing. But we were like, right, we're in the zone. Let's just go for it. And I look back on that season and it was unbelievably intense, but also amazing, beautiful. And then we planted Gas Street Church. We moved up to Birmingham. And anyone who has planted church will know that's like having a baby in terms of the intensity. And we were doing that together. So we were both very much in it together. And at that point, our youngest was 3. So he'd begun doing sort of part-time nursery. There was space. And then he went to school. And so we were very much kind of leading it hands-on together. But at the same time, this desire to adopt or foster had not gone away within me. And I'd say over the course of a couple of years, if anything, it intensified. And I started talking to Tim about it. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, we're full. I was like, I know, but it just won't go away. And somebody wise once said, follow your tears. And I'm not a big crier necessarily, but anytime I heard or saw anything to do with children that were in situations that weren't safe or where they were in danger of any kind of abuse or neglect, I was a mess. I was just a total wreck. At the same time, I couldn't ignore the biblical mandate around caring for children that don't have a safe home. And so, I started talking to Tim. Tim's like, we're full. I know, but I think this is a God thing. And again, credit to Tim. I knew I couldn't just persuade him. I'm quite persuasive. I can be quite, but
I can imagine.
I knew I couldn't persuade him. It had to be his own conviction. At the same time, we were going on this journey with our birth children. 3 of our birth children were like fully on board. Like, okay, when? But one of our birth children really struggled. And again, I knew that they needed to be on board in order for us to move forward. And I really wanted to honor their concern about it. And so that journey was about 2 years long of me just praying in the background, feeling this growing burden, I would say, and Tim not quite there yet, and one of our birth children not quite there yet. And I did think, do you know what? I might just have to let this go. And it's not going to look how I think it's going to look. And then one day, well, why don't you say?
Well, so I think I was just thinking, gosh, how's this going to work? The elastic band at some point is going to break. And would this be that moment for me? I'd end up sort of rocking in a corner somewhere. But I remember, so I was really praying. And I guess a verse for me that's always been important is, to whom much is given, much is required. And I look back and I've been blessed with a really stable family, and, God's given me amazing opportunities and experiences. And so I'm always like, okay, Lord, I know there's a cost and I want to be open to that. I was away in America praying, and the only thing I ever felt God say clearly on all of this was to trust Rachel's instincts, which wasn't really what I wanted to hear. And it's only on this topic, not on not on absolutely everything. Yeah, just you get carried away. That was my interpretation. So I think I came back and, well, Lord, that's what I'll do. So we began. You go through all the training, and it's interesting because all the training, understandably, they tell you all the horror stories. I guess they're trying to freak you out, not freak you out, but to make you aware of the enormity of what
so you don't go into it naively.
Exactly.
And all during those, rather than coming away thinking, I can't do this, I was like, there's a real peace. And I think it was that peace that just rested on me in all these moments of potential real stress. And then the moment where we're with our social worker and she said, look, should we go into the hospital and meet Summer? And it was like, oof, okay. It was quite a terrifying moment because it's suddenly like it's all an idea. And then it's like, this is reality. Wow. And so we went to the hospital, and it was during COVID. So we'll have to put on the PPE gear. You could only go in one at a time. Rachel goes in. And so I'm just sat in the waiting room thinking, oh, our lives are about to massively change. And I don't know what I think about all of this. And it was the head spinning. And then Rach comes out, of course, she's in love. She's amazing, incredible, wow. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So then I go in, and you're in this ward with about 5 or 6 tiny babies, all in sort of similar situations. And so you're aware of the fragility these little lives. And so I looked in, and there's this kind of a week-old baby, and you almost in my head had become afraid of her because you're thinking of how this is going to affect everything. But then suddenly it's like you're this tiny little girl who just needs to be loved and cared for, and why am I afraid of you? I don't know. So I remember, and I picked her up and held her and just felt this enormous sense of peace and love. And I think the fear dissipated then. And I think there's an understandable reason why people are afraid of these kind of enormous decisions. But she then came home, and for me, it's been an amazing, amazing thing. I mean, I have such an incredible bond with her and love her deeply. And actually, I maybe have even spent more time in the early years with her than perhaps the other guys, and have a really deep bond. And I've had the joy and privilege of being part of some amazing, amazing sort of things ministry-wise that have, had a huge impact. But for me, this is the thing that I've felt most God's pleasure in. Wow. And, the most Christ-like thing I've done, I guess. And she's been an incredible gift. She's an absolute bundle of joy. But has been costly. We haven't slept for 5 years. Sleeping in her bed last night because and then she's waking me up at 6 for milk. I'm like, I'm too old for this. So it's hit hard. It really has. And yet the joy has been incredible.
And I think the other thing is with our birth children, again, we've got some amazing family and friends around us who speak very honestly into our lives. We've deliberately created, those kind of relationships where people those that are close to us can be honest. And I think people did express concern, like, are you crazy? Yeah. And I think there was concern for our biological children, the stretch for us, and we didn't dismiss that concern. But I think, like I said, when you know it's a deep conviction, and actually one of the things that's been so joyful is seeing the way our birth children have really embraced her. And they have the most, I mean, they have a sibling relationship, you know, it's not, there's an age gap, but that she's brought them so much joy.
So when I look at your lives, obviously you've got 5 children, you've got a church that you run. Tim, I'm not sure if you still are doing like lots of worship things, maybe not touring as much as you used to, and then Rachel doing the Orchard, so you're running a women's conference. There's a lot going on, but it's not just a lot of admin or a lot of things. It's actually a lot of people. Like it's a lot of humans, and working with humans is very unpredictable. And you can't ever just like plan for something to go the way that you want it to go. You have to always give this kind of like buffer room for someone having a meltdown, or there being a crisis or a drama at church, or just all these different things. So that can feel like a weight to carry. So with a lot of people that actually are almost depending on you emotionally, rightly or wrongly, there are a lot of people that probably are depending on you. How do you try and stay connected to each other as a married couple throughout all of the extra demands that are quite emotional demands?
That reality is enormous, isn't it? And they talk about, you know, in leadership, people place unfair expectations on you, and actually there's a lot of transference of, and you see this, you know, of course there's been a lot of abuse in the church, which is horrific, which needs to be, you know, brought to justice, but then the danger is everyone can slightly, well, I'm in pain because my church leader or my church, you know, and it can be unfair. I think so. I think for us, part of the almost keeping connected, but also part of managing that is recognizing that we can't fix people. We can't. I think the danger is if you think, okay, I've just got to keep trying to work a bit harder to keep this person happy, to keep. Also, when there's a crisis, we notice there's some people who maybe, I know, accidentally, they just pour more fuel on the fire. And I think what we've learned, and we've had to learn this to be quite good at, is when there are crises, just to be the calming, I love this phrase, the non-anxious presence, just to, you know, actually, we'll be okay, we'll get through this, you know, let's just take the heat and the emotion as best possible out of it. So I think in terms of recognizing how we can deal with that better, that then I think has enabled us to carry that way. You know, it's like, I see it like, and you feel when we come back from our holiday in the summer, it's like you're putting back on this really heavy jacket. And always the first few weeks in September, it's quite emotionally intense. I'm always like, can I keep doing this? But then you just back in. So I think that's been important. But then I think for us, again, it's like being really good at getting time together, and also really articulating what you kind of need. I mean, I think that the importance of being really vulnerable and really honest with each other is so important. And obviously in a marriage can at times be quite hard and costly when if I explain how I'm feeling, is this going to make them angry, or are they going to be like, what a loser? Do you mean? Because I think you have to somehow bring that, the worst of you, I guess. And I think that's what's been amazing in marriages, when you bring that, the things that you feel ashamed of, embarrassed by, or I can't believe I'm actually admitting this to you, and you're met with understanding and love on the whole, that brings a stronger bond. So I think for us, having those spaces to say almost the unsayable has been really, really important.
Yeah, I think probably what we have in our favour is that we do really love people. We're both, I mean, I'm a massive extrovert. Tim's probably on the border, aren't you? But we love
Becoming more
people.
introverted as I go.
Yeah.
So it's not a chore for us to be around people.
Yeah.
We've always got people in our house. You know, we've got a big family. But you're right. Carrying the responsibility of lots and lots of people's emotions is at times hugely draining. Not just their emotions, but as Tim said, their expectations as well. And there are times where all I want to do is shut myself in a silent, dark room
And knit.
and knit. I love knitting. But I also think we have a very deep friendship. You know, we really fancy each other. So that's a relief.
I love that.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, just checking. That's the right answer.
Yeah.
Correct.
But we are each other's favourite company. And so it's not a chore to hang out together, to prioritise time together. If anything, probably the number one reason that we get grumpy with each other is because we're missing just us time. And so we do have rhythms. We have a Monday together. I mean, you know, sometimes it's interrupted by lots of different things, but generally we fight to have Monday together. And it's, you know, we will have brunch and we talk and we'll walk the dog. It's not, you know, complicated. And that, I think that has been absolutely key to everything else. And I know, you know, I think our kids recognise that we have to have some, like we said to them, we've got to go up to our room this morning because we're doing this podcast. And they went, oh yeah, doing the podcast.
That's a new one.
Yeah, that's a new one.
It's a very weird thing when you got your kids chiming in on sex life.
Do you think we've like invented that we're doing a podcast? But you know, again, with 5 kids, all different ages, honestly, for us to connect in every way, we've just had to say, don't come in. Otherwise, it would never happen.
I'm so embarrassed, but I shouldn't.
I'm so sorry. But you have to be real about this stuff.
No, it's good.
Yeah, we did laugh, didn't we, this one? The other, I think we do, you know, like when the pressure is building, you know, it could be that at any given moment, there's pressure within the family, you know, there's something going on there's all this heavy stuff. Life is heavy with stuff. We just laugh. We laugh a lot together. We've got close friends, close family that we can pick up the phone, meet up, and half the time we're crying, half the time we're just laughing our heads off. And that's also a massive like relief. Just like laugh and laugh and laugh. And I think probably without those things we wouldn't manage it. And God's put those things in our lives for a reason, I think.
Oh, I love that. No, it's so good because I think, it can sometimes be the relationships that feel the most kind of steady or like, oh, that's fine, that then get pushed aside when there feels like there's other demands. So it's so beautiful to see that you guys have that rhythm, that you have that time that you do protect, but that also you just love being together like your mates. Like that's so great. So yeah, very wonderful. So my last question for you, I actually had lots of other questions, but this podcast would be about 3 hours long if I carry on. But my last question is, as parents in the modern world, so we're in 2025, what do you feel like are most important? What is the most important thing about our role as parents?
The 2 things that come to mind. Number one is you just to pour love, encouragement, confidence into your children. You know, there's the world of social media where there's so much comparison and, you know, we're all trying to compare ourselves to these amazingly beautiful looking or gifted, talented individuals. You know, the sort of self-loathing is real. So just pouring in, you're amazing, I'm so proud. You know, what the Father, God the Father does to us, just endless delight, joy, proud, pleasure. So I think that's something it's really important. And funny enough, I think sometimes I have to work at that, the words thing. I think it, but sometimes I need to be better at just articulating it. Lavish, over the top praise.
Can I just say very quickly about the pride and delight thing?
Yeah.
But carry on after.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think almost like a way of understanding that as a parent is to think about the difference between pride versus delight. And there's that famous well-known verse in Zephaniah 3:17 that talks about the Father delighting over us. And I think at times as parents, we can do a good job of being proud of our children's achievements, which is important. But I think we have to be as intentional about speaking words of delight over them, which have nothing to do with anything that they've achieved or accomplished. It's just pure delight in who they are and the very fact that they're our children. And we do this very easily with babies because babies don't do anything particularly impressive. But we naturally delight in babies. Oh, you're so cute. You're so lovely. You know, da-da-da-da. And I think the danger is we stop as they get older. And I think to be really intentional with delight, not just pride, is really important. So they know, just you're very, like, I just love being your mum. That's a phrase I use all the time. I just love being your mum, just because of like words of delight.
That's good. And then I think the second thing is around, I don't know what the phrase would be like, character formation seems a little bit, I don't know, but instilling values is probably a better way of putting it. That actually I care less about what you become in terms of your job, career, but I really care about who you become. And so, you know, my great desire is that you're someone who's kind. My great desire is that you're someone who's generous and other people centered. My great desire is you're someone with integrity and humility. And so even like yesterday at lunch, we were asking the kids, you know, what was the last kind thing you did for someone? Because you're trying to, and again, it's interesting seeing, actually with both the boys and the girls, with the boys, it means maybe slightly stereotype, or our eldest, you know, that kind of bravado, you got to be the big man in town, you know, all that toxic masculinity stuff is real. And then for the girls, jealous, competitive, catty. I mean, they're not quite as general. Are you saying
about our daughters?
No, they're not. But the school environment, gossipy. It's like, oh, wow. And actually, so it can end up being a bit like the survival of the fittest, you know, for like those late teenage years.
Got to survive that environment.
Like, I really get it. I remember it. And yet within that, when you're seeing this kind of behavior, like, no, actually, don't be a sheep. I think that's a massive thing for me. Don't just follow the crowd. That's not cool. That's not rock and roll. That's easy. That's what everyone does. Be different, be distinct by being kind, by being humble, by, you know, not just falling into things. And you're much better at this than me. Conversations around sex and identity and boundaries with boys and parties and you know what all their friends are up to. It's like, guys, don't. I mean, you've got to have if you're not having those conversations, then that is the waters that they're swimming in.
Yeah.
So I think being really attentive and aware to speak, and that can be tough, like around phones. Like, we've got screen times, and we're not as strict on it as probably we should be or others are. But there's screen times, and they're like, no one else has screen times. It's like, well, don't need to rot your brains on TikTok.
I think I would say always look for the deeper conversation. I think so often with parenting, we're tackling the surface level, like screen time. You know, can I go to this party? Or can I wear this outfit? Or, you know, can I do this? Can I do that? And I think often as parents, we can end up feeling like we're dealing with the surface level. My prayer, my hope, and my intention is to create spaces where you can speak into the deeper conversation, the why. Why do you want this amount of time on this app? What's going on? And not, again, the danger with parents is we sit in that seat of judgment all the time. And I get that. I mean, I've done it a million times. you know, because you want to sort of control their behavior, you know, whatever. But actually, judgment never brings out the best in someone. Actually, if you can, and I'm not saying that we abandon boundaries or rules. I'm not for a minute. Gosh, we need they need to know where the boundary lines are, and there I think at times there need to be consequences when they're crossed. But if we're looking for the deeper conversation, the why do you feel that's important, or what tell me, what's the desire behind you wanting to do that? Not in a judgment. What is it about this particular app that really interests you? I want to hear more. And actually, my good friend Anna Smith, who may have, I don't know, I think she's
she's been on the podcast before.
She's excellent at this, and I've watched her and I've learnt that she's always looking in, digging into the deep conversation. And I've never heard that judgment voice in her parenting. Like, just help me understand, what are you up to? Like, what is it about this party that you feel so, rather than, no, you're not going to that. End of conversation, end of argument. So tell me, what is it? This person's going, you're worried that you're going to be excluded if you don't go, okay, that's a whole, let's talk about that. That's I think, particularly in their teens, look for the deeper conversation rather than spending the whole time in the surface level.
Wow, that is incredibly helpful. So I've heard a few things. So we've got pouring love and encouragement into your children, got pride, taking delight, not just taking pride, character formation, and looking for like the deeper conversation. So that is the summary of what the Hughes would say the role of a parent is. I'm sure there is so much more, and I feel like we could talk forever, and I am so grateful just for your wisdom and just for your openness as well. You're both so open and honest and willing to share, and it's generous. And not only here on this podcast, but you have your own podcast that you do at home with the Hughes, and you share so much wisdom on there. So if people want to hear more, please go and listen to all of that as well.
Thank you.
But no, I really do appreciate you guys spending the time with me this morning, and I hope you have the best rest of your holiday. No more podcasts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Em.
Thank you so much for listening to that episode with Tim and Rachel Hughes. Now, if you know somebody that would love that conversation, please do share it with them. And of course, if you want to hear more from Tim and Rachel, you can check out their podcast. But also, they are both going to be at Spring Harvest 2026. So if you haven't got your tickets yet, now is the time. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.